Offseason CST is back, and we hope you are enjoying these periodic updates as FC Cincinnati updates us all. The good news is that the faucet of sweet soccer news has started dripping, and it seems to be picking up pace. And that might be because we've got an early season turnaround and preseason is just around the corner. The real question is, can I snap these guys out of off-season partial retirement? And has anyone done a wellness check on Ken Hedger? We're going to need a financial update soon here, guys. Brad came out of nowhere this week with an article on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com today about the draft. So that's how I know he is alive. But that is a nice piece on the draft that is tomorrow or today/yesterday. If you're listening to the podcast, we will for sure be referencing that later on in the show. I did give our co-hosts tonight a homework assignment, so we can all collectively judge them and see if they are ready for the 2022 season. How are you, though, listener? How has your off-season been? Yes, you can talk out loud to your speaker. I can hear you. All right, well, we'll keep that between us. My co-hosts are over here trying to eavesdrop, so let's go ahead and introduce the cast that will kick us off in 2022. First up, first show of the new year. Who gets the dibs on the early intro? Welcome in, Bryan Weigel.
Oh, thank you all. I'm glad to be back here for 2022 season number 4 of Major League Soccer for FC Cincinnati. It's felt like 20 seasons, honestly, just aging myself. My red beard now has gray in it. Thank you, FC Cincinnati. No, I'm excited. Some vision has been acted upon for the first time in FC Cincinnati history over the past couple weeks. So good early marks for Albright, and I can't wait to talk about it a little bit further.
Yeah, 2022, full of hope. I actually thought about doing a Star Wars intro with like a New Hope, and then I decided Disney would strike us down.
Well, you'd have to work in Boba Fett in there somehow.
Heard that's not going well, but our ratings tonight are going to be better than Boba Fett's ratings. That's my prediction of the new year. You had a great show a couple weeks ago talking about the new head coach. I appreciate you filling in there. I hope our listeners enjoyed that. Any additional tidbits there?
No, yeah. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but as I said, he's acted on his vision. I think more importantly with his staff. So excited to talk about that. But I'm more excited to talk about the baby of Jamie Vardy in the background of Nate's picture here. Got like a baby rhinoceros head, Nate. What's going on there, big guy?
Yeah. Well, it's not real.
Just like the Rochester Rhinos.
Yeah. Yes.
Are they ever going to be real again?
Why we had a poacher on staff?
No, I picked that up somewhere along the way during some travels. But yeah, no, happy to be back. Happy to be kicking off 2022. It's felt like a short off season, and I mean I know it is, but it's felt even shorter for us. I know, but got some rest and relaxation over the holidays, and ready to get back on the proverbial pitch and talk about some FC Cincinnati.
You've hung in there pretty well with us. Off-season CST can get pretty weird. We've got NFL talk, restaurant talk, all kinds of other nonsense. And as we're just sitting here waiting for any kind of reliable FCC news, and I'm impressed, Nate. You made it through the waters.
Yeah. I've maybe officially passed the test, and ready for season 2.
Oh, man. Next up, the dependable voice of 2021 is back for the first episode of 2022. He's decided to be here for you all, listeners. Once again, Jeff Tebbets. How are you feeling? Bolder, stronger, better soccer fan in the new year?
Derek Carr, take a knee. You had 3 downs to take a knee so that we'd have the Patriots playing the Bengals.
Lobster bowl.
Come on, it would have been Lobster versus Jeff Ruby. That would have been perfect, but you blew it, guys. Why are you doing that? Why are you giving Big Ben more props? Stop doing that. You're ruining 2021-22's football season.
Jeff, that's our other football podcast.
Oh. I got to get better at this. Sorry, I'm rusty, man.
Who would stop more goals, Kenneth Vermeer or Ben Roethlisberger?
Ooh.
That's a tough one.
That's a tough one.
Is there a none of the above option?
I think Ben would just pick the ball up and throw the ball at the ground again. So, you know.
Happy birthday, Kenneth. You know what
Sorry.
Kenneth's doing to celebrate his birthday? He's drinking some Suero X. I'm sure. Rehydrating with the new Suero X, 0 sugar, 0 calories. I tell you what, guys, this drink is about to hit Cincinnati in storm. 2022 is the year I was promised personally that it would be hitting store shelves. So you no longer will have to shop for it on Amazon only. Look for it soon in a store near you. Segment 1, though, let's get into this show. We got some coaching staff. We got some more coaching staff. Bryan did a whole show on our head coach, but now he's brought along a few friends. And you wanna take it, Bryan?
About dang time, right? No, so I wrote a piece on CST about this new coaching staff and how Albright, Chris Albright, the GM, when he hired Pat Noonan, he's bringing in all these players. He had this vision. Okay, he wanted to solidify specific targets and specific profiles that have been around winning cultures, winning teams in the league, and they need to understand how the league works and how to win in these difficult situations. What did he do with Pat Noonan? Went out and got a very experienced assistant coach, a part of a great winning profile. And then what did Noonan do? He went out and got guys like Kenny Arena, who's an LAFC assistant coach, former U.S. men's national team head coach, Bruce Arena's son, knows the league like the back of his hand. He went out and got the most experienced, probably available coach in the league in Dom Kinnear, who's been the manager of 2 Major League Soccer clubs in San Jose and Houston, and then San Jose again. And I mean, these are 2 guys that are respected literally by pretty much every American out there. Well, Arena and Jeff Cameron, we'll see. But, it excites me. We keep talking about your 4th DP as your head coach, right? Well, yeah, he seems to be a very good pedigree guy, but he'd never had the experience. Well, he just went out and got 2 high profile assistants out there that I think every team in this league would be lucky to have. And of course, we have our new goalkeeping coach, Paul Rogers, who's been around the U.S. women's national team setup. He's been the director of goalkeeping at Houston for 5-6 years. And then Ricardo Paez, I apologize if I butchered that name, but he was an academy coach here in Cincinnati for the past 3 years. So he seems to be putting together a group of guys that are winners or have been around good culture. And we keep saying, okay, new head coach, new GM, never first time. We need guys that have had experience, and these guys do. So it excites me. I don't want to go just sell you guys a bag of goods out there saying, okay, we got to love everything we do. This blew my socks off, and I'm very excited to see how that's going to play out going into this probably rough year ahead. So we'll see.
Yeah. So
Nate,
I was just going to say,
I'm going to throw this to you real quick because Dom's a guy we on this show were talking about 2 years ago as a head coach in place of Ron Jans, and now you see his name roll across. So give me your thoughts when you first see that announcement.
I mean, I think it's fitting in exactly what Chris Albright was talking about in some of his media availabilities, which is loading up on MLS experience, which is something that this club has really lacked. Both on the field and in the dugout. So not only are you, and we'll get to some of the offseason additions in a bit, but you're adding so much experience on the bench, not only in Noonan, who played and then has been an assistant coach, but Kinnear has managed and also played in America, and Kenny Arena is, from this great, Bruce Arena's got to be the greatest MLS manager of all time. So, that's experience in how to win in this league that this team has never really had. So I absolutely agree. I think it's a great signing, and
38 years plus of combined experience. It's almost a decade each of them.
Yeah.
Not including Noonan, not including time for the U.S. men's national team setup. That's incredible compared to what we had here.
Absolutely. Jeff's our New England resident. Jeff, when Bruce plays his own son, does he throw the game to help boost his profile?
I don't know, because I'll be honest, like if you didn't tell me his last name was Arena, I really wouldn't know much about him. That's sort of the name that didn't really jump out when I looked at it. I'm glad to see, though, that we get exposure to other teams coming over here and wanting to make this team better than what it has been in the past 3 years. I'm still not convinced that we've got the best organization for it yet. The thing that really jumps out for me is the goalkeeper coach, Paul Rogers. Yeah, he's done good stuff for Houston since 2015, but you look at the numbers, their goal differentials are still pretty low. If it wasn't for us being really bad, Houston, I think, would probably be down near the bottom as well. So that's the one I'm like, I need to be sold better. And maybe it's that if we get a better, goods to put up between the pipes, then maybe we see better performances. But I also look at Dom Kinnear and I'm like, is he there just in case, you have to pull a trigger really quickly, like they did with Harksey, bringing in an experienced assistant coach just in case something goes wrong. I like the experience. I just want the experience to support and not be there as a buffer.
I think I think it's important, Jeff, and I'm going to challenge you on this one, is that you can't, we said this whole time, this whole offseason, if we have a head coach and GM with no experience in those roles, you need to have somebody around that's been there. And Kinnear is like the 5th most successful head coach in Major League Soccer history. Yes, he flamed out in San Jose. I think there's a lot more people to blame for that than just him. Of course, Houston didn't spend very much, and look what he did there. He did very well in his interim jobs with the Galaxy. So, I think he's probably going to have a pretty big role. But I think is somebody who can come to the league and say, you know what, Pat, I think you're doing this. You've always been a player's coach, but maybe you can tweak this or tweak that and give him a sounding board. I think that's probably good for everybody. I don't think he's going to be like the overarching, you need to do X, Y, and Z kind of guy, but I think it is important to at least have some background or back something to pull on and support to create something brand new in Cincinnati.
I'm not necessarily saying that he's a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, I think until we start seeing the ball rolling in preseason, then we can start, determining whether or not having this coaching setup is going to work. Anything is better than what it was the past year, 2 years. I think putting anybody in there who's really got a pulse right now is better than we've had the past 2 years.
Okay. Now, what do you think about, does this say anything about the organization that Albright's building, that he's acted on what he said to go get at least the experience, whether it might be something that may or may not work? At least he's identifying key roles, which that's an improvement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And this goes to something you said earlier. And I'll phrase it a little differently maybe, but ownership is such a huge competitive advantage in a lot of these situations. So coach, like a head coach or can be a 4th DP, but there's no salary cap for coaches. So why not go out and spend money on bring Dom Kinnear in or somebody else who might have more attractive offers.
And it's what they did. They had to have done that for those guys.
Yeah. And if ownership is still willing to spend, that's a great sign. And if you can improve your team on the margins like that, and especially in a league that is so restrictive in how you can acquire players and how much you can pay players, you really need to be taking advantage of every single opportunity to make your team better. And it seems like that is the case with this coaching staff.
Boston, that's going to be the new title of this episode, is improving on the margins, because that's what everything's going to be about tonight. I like it, Nate.
We sat here and we were talking about, man, Jim Curtin would have been like an A+ home run. And I'm not knocking Noonan. I think he's going to be a decent coach. But, we were just talking about that would have been like, boom, FCC's here. And then we bring in Noonan. But I tell you what, getting Dom Kinnear is what made it a home run again, in my opinion. Like, I think FC Cincinnati will be dramatically better in 2022. It's not hard to be better in 2022. Honestly, the bar is right there for the taking. So I don't feel crazy saying that, but I think the experience we brought in, and to lend credit to Jeff's point, I'll give you a few points on our virtual board here for the Houston. That's probably the only weak spot, and that's only because Houston just had some bad run-ins with goalkeepers. Now, we don't know if that's personnel. We all know Houston's not a huge spending team.
Yes, it was. It was personnel. You had a person who committed some crimes in that Tyler Derrick.
That's true.
So
but you also get to that whole, like, it's the same debate we've had with Jack Stern. Jack Stern just left the FCC organization. Is Jack Stern the greatest goalkeeper coach, and we just had Kenneth Vermeer, et cetera, or is it just a combination? No one. It's impossible to tell. There is no way to know. All we know is that FC Cincinnati had atrocious goalkeeping. And so if there's any weak spot, in my opinion, I give Jeff points for pointing it out there. We don't know. FCC could rise up and be a great goalkeeping unit this season, and I think that's what Paul Rogers is going to try to prove.
One other note, guys. So I guess, Jeff, you want to go touch on that? I'm just going to talk about Tyron Marshall.
Go for it.
Does it say something to you guys that this guy wanted to stay around? Because he's coming back to go back to that MLS 2 team role. Doesn't that give you a little?
Going to Chicago?
I don't know. He's not, apparently. But doesn't that make you, though, if he sticks around, like, he's still buying into this project? Like, that kind of gives me confidence.
I would hope the organization would keep him around. I mean,
am I making too much of a judgment out of that, Jeff?
I think you could go either way. I think part of it is that I feel that Marshall had something in place that he wanted to accomplish as in his position, but I also see that going and taking that interim role really hurt his stock. Now, granted, no one's really going to hire him as a head coach. They might bring him in as an assistant, but I have a feeling if he wasn't, or if he got a few more wins or draws under his belt, then maybe he would be going into Chicago or somewhere else as an assistant coach. It could go either way.
His knock is that he couldn't turn around FCC. He took a job no one wanted, so you can't fire the guy.
There's questionable decisions in that.
They went to him and said, "Hey, we need you to be the coach of FC Cincinnati, the worst team in Major League Soccer. Will you do it?" And he's like, like, I was fine where I was, guys. So I think it's okay to put him back where he was. I wouldn't hire him as my next head coach if I'm the LA Galaxy, but I don't think there's anything wrong with Chicago giving him a look at like they did at one point. So if FCC wants to keep him running MLS 2, that's fine. I think that's fine. You don't need a world-class head coach to run your 2 team. Nate, anything? Any follow-ups?
No, as we'll touch on later, the MLS 2 is still just such a mystery box.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Who knows, like, what his responsibilities are going to look like. And, I don't know. I get not wanting to, pick up and move across the country in the middle of an ongoing pandemic. So, but it'll be good to have him back. It seemed like the guys, at least on the team, were still, for the most part, fighting for him. It got kind of dire towards the end of the season, but
I like that disclaimer.
I think it'd be impossible for anybody to keep guys or be motivated through all of that.
Just keep him for those fashion tips. He was a snazzy dresser there.
Well, guys, get ready, because in our next segment, you are going to have to dig deep in your bag. I think you all have assigned players, and you are going to sell them to us and the audience as if you are a GM selling this to Jeff Birding, or a coach selling it to Chris Albright. And so we're not necessarily endorsing any of these players quite yet, but we are going to, for the purpose of this exercise, sell it to each other and sell it to the audience. So before we do that, though, you can get in touch with us at Cincinnati Soccer Talk on Twitter. Email us at feedback@cincinnatissoccertalk.com. We've gotten some off-season emails, and we appreciate them. And we always direct those to the place you want them to go. Our show, though, is by and large supported by fans. We get sponsors, but the legwork is done by all of you. And we have switched our support this year, a little bit last year, to Patreon. And so we do thank each and every one of you that keep Cincinnati Soccer Talk free. Your support keeps it free for the website, free for every fan, the podcast free. I mean, there's so many people that take advantage of the website and the show. So we appreciate all of you that do that. We're going to just real quickly run through a list of those. Red Lee, John Davidson, Mike Hudson, Robert Stevens, Laura Failer, Matthew Adamchek, Buddy Taylor, Riley Stephen Burke, James Denbrough, Tom Newhouse, Brian Weigel, Brian Gillis, Dan Albers, Will Kychek, Ian Rexroad, Augustus Caceres, Bill Antonitis, Carl Feit, Jeremy Schran, Kyle Pohl, Christina Sharma, Rupesh, Mike Hudson, Tom Besledorf, Jason, who is super average, John Haskell, Ryan Ernst, Mary Lou, Rob Pierce, Clifford Adams, Thomas Seth, and brand new in the offseason with hardly any shows coming at you, we have 3 new supporters, and we want to give you a special shout out to Pierce Johnston. Mike, and I'm going to get your last name wrong, so you got to send it in to me just so I make sure I don't screw it up forever, because I literally YouTubed this, and it said it was Italian, and I know that's not true. But just in case, Prentice is what I think it is. And then Mr. and Mrs. Wiederholt, thank you so much for your off-season support. And we hope anyone that's on the fence will just jump right in and keep the CST train a-going. All right. Players signing.
Hold on real quick. Congrats to Clifford Adams on your engagement, buddy.
All right. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Clifford Adams is a regular on the Facebook's live show. So definitely love Clifford. All right. Back to the hype. Player signings. I think first up, did any of you have Albus Powell? Because we're going to go ahead and throw him in here. I know he's an old signing, but he's a new signing.
I do.
All right, Brian.
Am I starting off?
Yeah, you're going to start us off.
All right. Who wants a guy who has 140 Major League Soccer appearances?
All right.
Who's a speed demon? Who can cross the ball? He's got a lot of offensive capability, but he plays right back. Can be on an island offensively, but not defensively. He's played for your club before. Who wants this guy? Anyone want to sign up? No, I'm joking. Albus Powell, love you. Just a little sarcasm in there, everybody. But seriously, it is what it is. He's an offensive force going forward as right back. He's going to be able to bomb forward up there. Gives you a lot of experience, but he might give up some opportunities in that right back role. I guess my question to you is, would you rather have a guy who's knows the role, knows how to play, who will be able to combine with a little bit more attacking potential than he had previously? He's but a third of the cost of Joe Zhao. So I can see this signing. It makes sense. He's not going to be a guy who's going to go and start 30 games. He's a max 20 game starter. He's been a max 20, 25 game starter his whole career. So he offers a dynamic ability that is still kind of unique to this league. So he's been playing very well for his country in Jamaica. And I hope he can turn that into a great time here in Cincinnati, especially because he has some experience with our new head coach. So that's Albus Powell. Is it a home run signing? I don't think anybody would say that, but it's a solid, low budget cost move that makes sense when you're constructing a roster. Might be a supplemental guy, might be a very low senior roster guy. We don't know how it's going to play out yet, but I think it makes sense, right, guys? More experience.
2 head coaches since Albus Powell was on this team.
Golly, and honestly, I
new head coaches.
Not whatever the interim, whatever he didn't get much of a rollout, a shakeout, and in his first run here in Cincinnati, nor his second stop in Miami. But I think for the budget, let's give him a rollout. What's to lose in this scenario?
Justin Hoyt is crazy high on Powell. And he said that FC Cincinnati did not get the real Powell. Whether we didn't play him correctly or whether he wasn't in the right mindset or the right whatever, but based on what Hoyt saw every day at practice, he's saying the real Powell has not been seen. And there obviously is a real Powell, because if Noonan's reaching all the way in his Philly bag of tricks, then there's something there.
Experience. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I sort of like Powell just because I think in that first year that he was with us, I think our major missing point was we didn't have that solid number 10 player. And it feels like Powell was that type of person who wanted to connect with an offensive attacking midfielder. He needed that guy to dish the ball with, maybe give and go, much like Monterita has been doing on the left-hand side. And so I think if we've got that set up where we've got two of those players on both sides, we can then play the wing, I think, a little bit better. So I like Powell on this team. I'm willing to give him a shot. And also the good thing is you're not going to see him being used in international games as much as the past 2 years. So you won't really have to worry too much about him going to play for the Jamaican team. And maybe we see more of him available this upcoming year.
Yeah, just one window earlier in the year. That's about it.
Yeah.
What was Powell's big knock when he played for us? That he didn't get back in time? Is that what I remember?
Didn't get back in time. He would go up real solid on offense.
I'm poking holes in Bryan's theory.
Yeah.
And no, I said you can't leave him on defensively. I said you can let him go forward, but leaving him back. And do we want to transition to our next right back, or do you want to go somewhere else?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead and transition. Since you have two, the rest of us only have one.
Raymond Gaddis. Okay. So if you would have told me last year that we signed Ray Gaddis before he retired, I'd be like, that's a freaking banging move. Like, experience, better than average right back. Offensively, not there. Like, the guy's had 8 assists or 10 assists his whole career, like 200 plus games. Like, he doesn't give you anything going forward, but try to beat him going back. I mean, he's a lockdown right back. They can play on the left. I'm interested to see what we do with our center backs, if that's maybe in his career path at some point, but he's a leader. He's a great humanitarian, positive locker room guy, has shown by everybody that's dealt with him in Philly. I mean, there's not one person that's dealt with him in Philly that doesn't love the dude. So super excited to have him here. And I hope that this will be a guy who, okay, if he's 10 games, great. If he's 25 games and he's playing well and we sign him for $120,000, it's a lottery ticket. Again, high upside, very low risk, knows the system, knows the coaches, knows what's expected of him. And can he mentor Zico Bailey? I'm never one to push that on somebody, but I mean, he's a professional. I don't think he's going to go and be a negative Nancy out there. And that's what we need in this scenario. If we're going to be a bad team, which we very well could be, we still need guys who are going to go in there and be professional. It's like one of the reasons why I'm like head scratcher why we didn't bring Edgar Castillo back. But I'm very optimistic with this signing. It would have been a great signing last year. We'll see what happens if he's fit and how long it's going to take him to get back into game shape for this season.
He's got to earn the starting job from Zico Bailey. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, your best friend Zico Bailey. Your best. I mean, we got three right backs on this team, and I mean, literally, you could see one to go 15, 10, and 5 or 6. I mean, you're probably going to see all 3 of them this year, but they all offer something different. And that's important. If we're going to play matchups, if we're going to be a team like Nashville, who's tough to beat, on the road, if we need a bunker on the road, he's a great guy to throw out there. Gaddis is. If we need somebody to go forward, Powell, Zico, I mean, it's good options. And you see why they're bringing them all in, because they're different players. They're different scenarios out there.
And, I mean, it's been a short offseason, but I mean, obviously Albright and Noonan both came from Philly, and you're bringing in 2 guys who are very familiar with that system. Having some experience, operating under the assumption that we're going to be bringing over a similar tactical identity from Philadelphia, having Powell and Gaddis to help guys be in the right spot and to bring the intensity and just the general awareness of how you need to play in that system is going to be really important, rather than everybody just figuring it out by themselves.
You have the mic, so keep it going. Let's transition to goalkeeper. We have a brand new goalkeeper. I want to hear about him.
Yeah. I think all you need to say is he's a domestic MLS keeper. So Alec Khan signed in early on in free agency. He was the backup to Brad Guzan in Atlanta for the last couple of years, since 2017, I believe, Atlanta's inception. So he hasn't played a ton of MLS minutes, but in that, I think it's just over 2,800 MLS minutes since, in his career. Since 2017, he's played just over 2,000 minutes. And he has been, according to American Soccer Analysis, who has a shot stopping metric. In that time, for keepers who have played more than 2,000 minutes, he is the second best shot stopper in MLS, only behind Matt Turner. The three worst keepers on that list are Kenneth Vermeer, Cody Cropper, and Titon. And so I can't. I mean, he's not going to be an immediate, or we don't know if he's going to be able to maintain that over the course of 34 matches. But I mean, he seems like an upgrade. Even if he regresses slightly, he's still going to be a massive upgrade over what FC Cincinnati got last year, and has gotten throughout its entire existence in MLS. He might not be as good with his feet as Kenneth Vermeer, or at least that we were told he was. But it seems to me that the most important thing for a goalkeeper is to keep the ball out of the net. So I can live with a little bit worse distribution. I think Matt Doyle in his free agency roundup said that he might not be as good at claiming crosses as some keepers. But if you have a keeper who can keep the ball out of the net consistently and at an above average level, that seems like a great addition to me. And because he's a backup, he should be coming in on a relatively good deal towards the cap. Mm-hmm. Probably won't be making a whole lot of money, probably potentially less than what the number 2 will be making this year. So seems to me like a pretty good piece of business by Albright.
Yeah, you have a $400,000 keeper on the roster that is potentially looking at the bench. That's obviously a point, but that'll be an interesting just watch as the season goes on. And then I talked to Atlanta fans. The one big knock they had against this guy was that he isn't as good of a communicator with Guzan, which makes sense because Brad Guzan's played so much longer, and so that he takes more shots than Brad did in Atlanta. But he also that's kind of why they think his stats are a little bit higher, because he took more shots than Brad ever did when he was in the game. But he did stop him. He was a great shot stopper. So, well,
if he saw more shots and is still this great of a shot stopper, that seems great. And he's going to face a lot of shots probably next year.
So I love intangibles. We've had guys literally as our goalkeepers running out the clock on their careers, and we finally have a guy who's got to prove something, that he can be a number 1. And at least for the first half of the season, when you have that motivation and you have that mentality in Jack Stern brought up in Laurel's article, I mean, that's something that at least we should be able to, I guess, hang our hat on. And I mean, fortunately, if we need to go out and get somebody next year, I mean, we're going to have plenty of cap space to do it. So low risk again, makes sense.
Right. I think it was a smart pickup. I think what you wanted to do is you wanted to get a backup goaltender who really had the opportunity to show what he can be as a number 1 guy. I would have been happy if we had gotten like Stefan Cleveland from Seattle. Heck, bring back Spencer Ritchie maybe. Dude. I know he went to Chicago now as the backup there, but why not bring him back? That's what I was thinking in the back of my head.
It's the same level, if not maybe slightly better. But of course, I said that about Cody Cropper last year, so don't trust me.
Well, Jeff, Our next signing is so hyped to be here. He's already looking for restaurant recommendations and has got them all from Victor Ullola on Twitter. That was a cool thread if you haven't seen that. Victor Ullola giving more restaurant recommendations than I probably can think of off the top of my head. So give us the rundown on our new signing, name, position, everything.
Okay, I basically covered this a lot like how Ralph Wiggum would cover his report for Idaho on The Simpsons. So let's do our best here. Basically, yeah, Don Badji's been with MLS since I think 2015. Came out of Boston University. Woohoo! Really made an impact right away with Colorado his first 3 years there. And ended up being dealt halfway through the 2018 season, I want to say. Yes, to go to FC Dallas. He really performed pretty well at that level. Basically, it was center forward, sometimes paired up with another center forward. His best year was arguably 2017, 9 goals, 4 assists. And then he sort of, I think he had found himself sort of competing for his job at FC Dallas. Jesus Ferreira was there as your false 9. Ricardo Pepi was coming up. They had a few competitors there, and he sort of got pushed out to the wings a little bit. So he went to Nashville in 2020 to see if he could restart his career there. He didn't quite fit the role there. He had an ankle issue. He had COVID screwing up a few things. Got dealt to Colorado again last year, where he really rejuvenated his career. Had 9 appearances with them, 5 goals, most of them coming off the bench, playing sort of a second shadow striker. And that's really where I think his role is going to be with this team. That while you have Brenner, you have Vasquez, you really didn't have a third threat, I think, coming off the bench late in the game. He tends to be one of those players that he'll come on when you're up 2-1, 2-0, and tack on a third goal somewhere. And that was one of the problems that we really had last year, that we were up 2-1, 3-1, and we would give up goals, but didn't have a counter to keep our lead high. And that tends to be what his role has been. That being said, it feels like he already wants to prove himself in his role. There was that leak that he had his jersey already printed weeks before he was announced for the team. So I think this is a positive direction for our team. It shows that we have room for 3 strikers on this team. If we need somebody to be put in there to come back, maybe that's when you unleash the likes of Brendan Vasquez. When you need somebody out there who needs to maintain a lead or stretch it, that's when you bring Badji out there.
I like this guy.
If he's looking for a good place to go, I recommend that the Eagle go there for your chicken.
I like this guy. He's got energy. He's an optimist. He's a Boston. I love it. Our last striker that's no longer on the team was always posting weird, like, sad stories on Instagram. So you don't want that out of your striker. You want a guy who's going to go out there and feel like every moment could be the moment.
And the best thing is he's got a green card.
Well, it is good. FC Cincinnati needs all of the domestic players they can muster. Overall, though, I think that was a good report. That was really detailed.
I'm Idaho.
Speaking of FC Dallas, I'm just going to jump right into my reports. Johnny Nelson comes from FC Dallas. Now, Dallas is one of these organizations that has a lot of youth, a lot of talent running through there, and they're notorious for missing on it. They're letting projects go too soon because they have to keep moving and pushing the next up-and-comer into their system. So they actually have had some pretty serious talent escape their doors in the last 15 years, really. And so we're hoping that Johnny Nelson is another one of those. We're sitting here looking at the draft tomorrow. Who's FC Cincinnati going to get in a Generation Adidas deal? How about a guy who just got off his 3-year Generation Adidas deal that has played serious 20 MLS matches? Like, he's already got minutes under his belt. The prime of his life is turning on here at the age of 23. So I think all of that goes in FC Cincinnati's favor. This is Frankie Amaya on the other side of the deal, except we got him for free. We didn't pay $1 million. Like, this is a player that has gotten time. and is going to he's going to see minutes on the field for FC Cincinnati. You know, he might not start at the beginning of the year, but I think he's going to find some of that depth time. He only takes a supplemental spot. FC Cincinnati does not have to go out there and blow a senior roster spot on this kid. And he's from Ohio. Like, he's one of us. He's excited to come home. And a lot of players do better when they're in a comfortable environment. So I think this could be the year of Johnny Nelson.
Hey man, backing up at the left back role, more depth and that knows the league. Again, everything. I think every guy we said on here is upside, low risk, high upside. So, yeah, we'll see if he can lock it down. If Mata somehow, Mata is a guy who's never really been able to last a whole season healthy, and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna need him at some point.
So the knock so far has been, where's your Brenner? Where is your big money signing? FC Cincinnati has really every single year, about by this time, come out, boom, here's your big name, here's your millions of dollars, cash sprinkling, like, I don't know, we're at Diamonds or something. So what's going on with FC Cincinnati? Why the low budget signings? If I could get you guys to stop laughing for a second.
I think it's it's in keeping with the overall Albright vision right now. Just adding depth to places where you don't need to spend big. So 3 fullbacks, a goalkeeper. Neither position is particularly where you want to be splashing out DP money or TAM money. So strengthening weaknesses last year, and forgive me in advance, Boston, but Zico Bailey is your only fullback, and as high as the upside is, you need more. You need right back. You need a right back.
I guess it's possible he could get hurt.
And Johnny Nelson gives you upside. I mean, he has some injury risk, but Edgar Castillo's 35 last year. So if you're thinking about it, replacing the Castillo spot with Gaddis, who's 31, and granted he sat out last year, but it was not a performance issue. It was not a skill level issue. So it seems like you're adding a depth who can contribute, who are all domestic, and will all be on reasonable salary cap deals, to strengthen a real weakness of the team from last year.
All right, that's a decent point. Bryan, are you underwhelmed, overwhelmed at this point?
Jeffrey, what are we, man?
I'm underwhelmed. I mean, I'm waiting for the big splash, but I also, because things really haven't moved in the MLS, it's all been moving out towards Europe. There hasn't been any move inwards towards the league just yet.
David Moore on Facebook says we still need a 6.
We need a few 6s probably.
Yeah, I think I agree with. I think Jeff and I are on the same page. Well, we look at these moves and we say, okay, that makes sense. That there's a lot of these things go, okay, yeah, we need that, but I think we'd like other roles. Like I think we would like a true out and out right back versus 2 projects, and real 3, including Zico. I think we're pretty good at left back. I think we better be fine at forward because we got a lot of money up there. So I think that we are in a good spot if you really look at the roster budget, where these guys don't cost a lot of money, where there's moves that can be made. And if we're going to transition to, talking about the roster a little bit more, that's good. So you were talking about, needing, David Moore says we need a DP6. 100% agree with you. We need somebody to lock down the midfield. And matter of fact, we need 2 midfielders at least. Whether hopefully it's not a draft pick and a DP6, but if you're looking at our roster, and I'll bring this graphic up here for you guys. Give me a second here. Let me find it. Okay, so we have roughly, right now, we have quote unquote, I would say 18. You all might disagree with me or correct me on this. I'd say we probably have 17 or 18 senior roster players, and that's guys who are making above, minimum, or most of them are making above minimum contracts, aren't your younger players. There's 2 players on this list you could say might be able to fall into the supplemental roster spots 21 through 24. You have Calvin Harris, John Nelson in that. You're probably going to have a draft pick in one of those roles, a GA player. So you could probably slide in Albus Powell or maybe Kyle Scott into one of those 2 roles, depending on how much the roster budget charts actually is. So when you're talking about these players, I mean, you are going to have, if you bring in a DP6, you're still going to have roughly 600,000 to 800,000 to bring in another 1 or 2 guys on that list. And that's that. I didn't think that would be the case going into this year. And I don't know if you guys thought, we'd be able to bring maybe 2 more impact players. We kind of thought and this is including keeping Kamahela Makocho.
Yeah, because you still have the buyout. FC Cincinnati could still buy out 1 player.
Mm-hmm.
At a complete loss to the owner, Carl Linder and Midwood, but there's that option's on the table. They don't have to use it though.
Yeah, I mean, we said coming out of our season wrap-up shows, don't be looking for a bunch of new powerful additions, but these moves that have been made, I think, allow for at least a couple moves. Whether that it is, if let's say we have 17 guys on the senior roster, let's say Powell kicks over to the supplemental, which is very likely. Okay. So you have 3 spots. You can bring a DP, and then you can bring in 2 players, roughly $300,000 each, $400,000 each, or you can go out and get a TAM, or hell, you could go out, cut Kamahela Makocho and bring in, some more real quality pieces. So we are disappointed, but there's a method to the madness. I'm thinking here, guys.
So you're looking at what? One DP.
I think you bring in a high profile, whether it's a DP or high TAM. I'm guessing, depending on how you buy down players, at least 1 more max salary contract player.
Okay.
Yeah. Because yeah, right. It's either, somebody may be making at like the same level as Kubo.
He could be making more, but at worst,
if they're going to be just the straight DP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. So either like a DP6 or even a DP8, but you definitely need to add 1, 2, maybe 3 midfielders, because this team is relatively thin on guys who can probably contribute in those kind of shuttling roles. And there's just really nobody on the roster who looks like a good fit to play as that central defensive midfielder in that Philly mold.
Yeah. At some point, you need to not rely on projects. Okay, I have our roster page up again. So projects on this roster, you have the guys that we discussed. They can be old guys too that are projects, but you're also talking about Kyle Scott in the midfield. You got Kubo. Where's he going to go? You got Cruz. Is he going to come back? You have all these question marks. This is the time for Albright to go out and grab 2 sure things, or about as darn close to sure things as you can with some money. And he's put himself in a position to do that, which I think is commendable. And that's not, again, without buying out Makocho yet, which might not happen until the day before the season or whatever happens.
And even if that's the plan, I can't imagine they're going to cut him before they have somebody else in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no reason to, because if that deal falls through, then you don't have anything.
Right. What's the update on that new U22 thing that they launched last year? Do we have any spots left in that spot, or did we suck them all dry?
I think it depends on
$1 million question.
Literally $1 million question.
Okay,
yeah.
So we talked about this. Yeah. Well, we talked about this too, guys. You have players in these roles in Alvaro Barreal and Isaac Atanga, and then you have another Generation Adidas player in Calvin Harris that are eating up valuable roster mechanisms that might not necessarily fit the overall long-term plan of this club. So what do you do with those players? Can you?
Well, do you know there's a penalty if you cut a former U22 player?
So if they leave MLS, At least this is my understanding.
Okay.
If they leave MLS, you'd get cap relief and you would get your U22 spot back. But
Okay.
if you sell them, if you don't recoup the same kind of transfer fee that you received and then some, you don't get like the full amount of allocation money that you could.
But if they go inside MLS, then that's where the penalty is.
They can't. I don't think they can go inside MLS until 3 years after they have been brought on roster.
Okay. Somewhere I thought I read about a 1/3.
Somebody is screaming into their radio right now. Correct us. We are open to that.
Yeah,
Feedback
please. Please. If you are watching this or listening to this and you are getting so fired up about MLS roster rules, maybe send us an email.
Okay, so Jeff, I've been seeing you play with your beard there, like you're pondering something.
Well, my major pondering thing has to do with the international roster spots. We're sort of up against it again.
Yeah.
We're talking about we make a splash with a DP, we make a splash with 2 other big name signings. We don't have too much room for that. Unless we buy more international roster spots that we did a lot of last year. So I'm just on the fence, like, okay, if we make a big splash, that's great, but who are we going to make it on? Maybe that's the $2 million question.
Yeah. So we're fortunate enough where we're second in the allocation ranking. So I don't even know who's first anymore. Inter Miami bought it from Charlotte or have traded somebody for Charlotte, but then somebody else might be buying it from them. I don't know what's going on there. So, I mean, there's still the ability to go get, a guy on that list, a higher profile returning player. So you have that ability, but I mean, you're relying on green cards.
Yeah.
But, fortunately enough, we have guys who've been in the league now or in the States now for a while, and Calvin Harris, Yakubo, I can't believe I'm saying this, Kenneth Vermeer. So I mean, there's some potential, but those guys have to get those green cards soon. I mean, in the next month, really, in the next month and a week, or we're going to be paying $250,000 in allocation money for more roster spots.
I looked up the U22 thing. It said a club may transfer the player out of MLS. You guys are right about that. Remove the player from U22 using TAM, loan the player outside of MLS, or utilize the 1-season buyout, or transition the player to a DP.
I just don't like the idea of using allocation money to buy down these players that you already have.
Yeah.
Out of that,
I
you're
agree
just
with you there.
wasting money. You're just basically acknowledging that it's a bad move. Now, if I see, $1 million, he's making 400K a year. Over 3 years, you can amortize whatever that. I mean, so would it be a ton of money? I mean, it's a $400,000 penalty, $500,000 penalty to buy him down off that U22 spot to make it, financially equal to what he is now. So I just don't see it happening.
No, you're right. That wouldn't make financial sense because of the roster discount you get for having them in that spot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Totally get it. So that's what FC Cincinnati is dealing with from a roster perspective, but they are headed into a draft, and the first pick is likely to be a Generation Adidas, which means just like Frankie Amaya, just like who was our second guy?
Calvin Harris last year. We traded away our first round pick in 2020.
Yes. So just like Calvin Harris and Frankie Amaya, if we pick a Generation Adidas player and don't trade it, then that salary would be covered by the league for 3 years, and you could push them off into that supplemental spot, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's take a quick look at our draftees. I think this is where we had Brad put an awesome article on the website. If you haven't checked that out, please do, because I think FC Cincinnati is really just looking at defenders, probably, correct?
Not necessarily.
The main forward is an international, and that's probably not up our alley.
Just love how you read Brad's story and came out with that line there, Boston. No, there's a couple main players. I think if you talk about Kip Keller, who's a center back out of St. Louis, A10, I think A10 player of the year. He's thought of highly, I believe. by a lot of folks. But does he make a lot of sense with Charlotte? Because I think they now have 4 center backs on their roster. That I think that would be somebody, if they fell to FC Cincinnati, that would be, to me, best case scenario. You have Ben Bender, who's a box-to-box midfielder out of Maryland. Again, another domestic player. We could end up with a lot worse players out there. So those are, I think, probably the 2 names that people might think of. Another maybe wild card would be Isaiah Parker out of St. Louis, who's probably going to be like a right back, wing back developmental player, but I'm just not sure that makes a bunch of sense for how our roster is constructed. There's a couple international players out there, Sani Buddha in Stanford, who is, again, a very highly thought of player, but that international roster spot, can we really afford to go with that right now? Again, I'm sure there's a bunch of people saying, oh, we could loan people to the MLS 2 side. I don't know how that works with Generation Adidas and a bunch of other things there. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think those are a bunch of big names. We have 2 picks, 2nd and 14th. It would not shock me if we ended up with a keeper with that 14th pick, but you got 2 really highly thought of keepers in Patrick Schulte and Roman Celentano out of Indiana. Will they be there at pick 14? Will we trade up to get one of those guys? I don't know, but there are some talented guys in the draft, and there's a lot of value, I think, over the whole scope of the draft, considering we got to fill a second team this year. So anxious to see how a GM who's never really had to draft is going to draft.
Well, my prediction, we trade $50,000 to Charlotte to move up to 1, give them number 2 so they still get their guy, and we get Kip Keller.
That's an option. Jeff's like, I don't know about that.
The only reason we have to pay the $50,000 is because they tell us they're going to trade it to somebody.
Do you know something, Boston?
Nope. I know nothing. This is 100% a wild Boston theory. And what's funny is most of our viewers will already know what happens when they listen to this, so they're going to be like, "What an idiot!"
Yeah, I know. That's funny. And what do you think, Jeff? I mean, there's still value to this process.
There is, but there's also value to dealing picks through this process. I mean, we're
sell
talking,
number 2.
Yeah, I would not be against selling one of these 2 picks. If you want to sell it for the bigger one, you might be able to get a good amount of AM money with it.
200 plus.
Yeah, maybe. I really don't. I mean, the top 3 tends to be the ones that have the most value, and then below that, you're going to see people like a John Nelson who slip through the cracks really without people thinking too much about it. It would be nice, I think, if they could get. I do like Kip Keller. I do like that big left-footed center back. And I don't know about Ben Bender. I've heard that he could fall pretty far if he doesn't go number 1. So it's hard to say. But I wouldn't be against selling one of them.
Yeah. I think.
All right, so go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, I was just going to say, whatever happens tomorrow, don't expect whoever is picked, assuming they pick number 2, to play a big role this year. I was listening to the you should check it out before the draft starts if you haven't listened to it already, the Extra Time radio show about the draft, and it made a lot of sense to me when they said that. Think of it more like the Major League Baseball draft. So right now you're picking guys who will not come in and contribute right away, but with MLS 2 or whatever it's called, this pipeline, you're going to be able to keep these guys around, presumably have them train either with the first team or right next to the first team, be familiar with the system, be familiar with the city, so that they are ready when they get called up, rather than being loaned out to, Tampa or Birmingham or wherever in USL they end up.
We love Orange County, baby.
Oh yeah. So they'll be in the same time zone at least. So thinking of even if it is Kip Keller, he might be a guy who kind of fills what we talked about a little bit, like as Nick Haglund. So like a fourth center back, maybe plays a little bit in the dog days of the summer. and then really logs a lot of minutes for the FCC2 team, and then is ready to contribute next year, as when Jeff Cameron's a year older, and who knows what happens with Tyler Blackett. Just looking towards the future, I think is the goal here.
Looking towards the future, but making sure they're not hurting the present. Okay, Calvin Harris might have been a great project, but his international roster spot really hurts.
Yep.
Kip Keller, if he can get off the books and be a domestic, if he's there. If he's not there, again, what Jeff said, somebody's going to be yelling at us. As long as these guys are off the books and not hurting us, if they make an impact, bonus points. If we can have a fourth center back be off the books like every other freaking MLS team does.
With upside, too.
Or if we get a keeper.
Yeah.
Keeper off the books. Like, if we're going to carry 4 keepers and 2 of them are legitimately, like, quote unquote, off the books or very, very low, great. That's perfect. We just don't need guys hurting us.
I think your one really area where you could possibly see a Generation Adidas player getting minutes in Major League Soccer is at like a center back or a defender role. That's historically where teams are plugging them in. Nashville has done it. Who was the guy that they took the same year Frankie
Alistair
Amaya
Johnson? Or no, not the same year as Frankie Amaya.
No, the same year as Frankie Amaya. Somebody Columbus. No, was it Columbus, Colorado? Somebody took a guy right. He's immediately
talking about Daryl DK.
No,
for Orlando City.
He's got a super long name, whatever his name was. But
Shinya Kazaki.
Yes.
Shinyashiki. Yeah, Shinyashiki
in Colorado.
Yeah, that's what you're looking at. Players like
international.
That. Yeah, I know, but he started and he got minutes and he did well.
Don't have that luxury. People will disagree with us.
I'm not saying it has to be international, but like I won't be shocked if Kip Keller is getting MLS minutes this year, especially by the end of the year.
If he's getting minutes, that means that we've had some injuries. We don't want to really talk.
I'm not saying
fourth center back. As a fourth center back, a lot worse options.
Ronald Matarrita had to play center back last year.
Yeah.
So,
and we got Rick Addis, baby.
That's right.
I mean, I could see them bringing him in. One thing that we had a lot of problems with last year were our yellow card suspensions. So maybe I wouldn't want to stick him in there as an emergency, but maybe it's one of those things that you play. You bring him up for one of these games where you need to have a center back.
I'm only just pointing at the most likely candidate to get minutes. That's really all I'm doing. You don't see a lot of forwards coming off of their Generation Adidas contracts rocking it. We were one of the only teams to start like a Frankie, and that's just because he was so highly rated that year. But no, I won't be surprised to see a defender. I
love your train of thought, Boston.
There will be some defenders coming out of this draft playing right away, in my opinion.
Especially if they're on FC Cincinnati, baby. Oh shoot! We're dogging these guys, but we really, I truly and honestly believe we are in a much better position. We are a much better position than I thought we'd be going into this year.
Yep.
And that's with making no banger signings. So,
yeah, we still got 3 weeks left for the European window's open for 3 more weeks. And I think players can still leave after that point, but I think most European teams want to have things wrapped up by the end of the month. So, I mean, still plenty of time. That might cut into their preseason, but it's a long season.
Oh, yeah. You look at FC Cincinnati, even last year, they were pulling players in as the season was starting. So don't be surprised if we're a little bit late on the draw.
The one question mark I have out there, and I apologize, I do not know the allocation list nearly as well as I should. Okay. But I want to I need to do the digging on this. In World Cup years, is very routine that Americans abroad who are not playing but want to get on that World Cup roster transition back to Major League Soccer. I would love to see the names out there of guys who might not necessarily be, might be shelved behind somebody that want to try to make that World Cup roster to come back and see with that second allocation spot if there's players that we could maybe bring in that are domestic. So that popped in my head. I should have been way more prepared than that. But if you want to look it up, DM me feedback at Cincinnati Soccer. No, I'm joking. But seriously,
the other thing, Charlotte is trying to sell that number 1 spot. Was what I saw today on the Twitter sphere.
yeah, I think I saw. No, they already have. Inter Miami.
Oh, yeah.
McCoon already has it, or we're going to. So, but then they were talking about selling it too. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's what it is. Miami's thinking about selling it.
Just said that 30 minutes ago, Boston.
Miami's thinking of selling everybody that doesn't have the David
20
Beckham name.
players. 20 players, guys. That's unbelievable. Sounds like FC Cincinnati.
Goodness gracious. All right. Well, anything else before we get to our final thoughts? I think we know FC Cincinnati single tickets are going on sale to season ticket holders. It's your pre-sale. If you have any game that you want to take, mom, dad, sister, brother, whoever, extra side piece, they all can get their tickets right now. This is your first window here opening up this week. Otherwise, after that, I'm pretty sure they're going to swing the doors open to the rest of the Cincinnati community. We still have a lot of questions on FCC2. We brought it up a little bit earlier in the show. What's going on? When's the roster coming out? What are the roster rules? There are more questions than answers when it comes to this FCC2 team. Who's even going to make up this team? Is it academy players? Are we going to send Archimedes back down? What's going on? And so that's kind of all up in the air. I think you said Extra Time kind of talked about it, and they were like, we don't know. And
Yeah,
this is coming from
that's
the
what
inside.
it sounded like. Yeah.
So we will keep you up to date. All of us at CST are very interested in FCC2. So as soon as we know something, you will know something. All that we know is that head coach Marshall will be coaching them.
Allegedly.
Final thoughts, Jeffrey Tebbets?
Yeah, just a quick one from me. Soon we're going to be out of pro football, and we're going to be looking for more soccer to look at. Once again, this is a World Cup year, so these two upcoming international windows mean the world to the United States, and I hope you follow them as close as I do. Over this upcoming year, I'm going to try to do more of a big time job to sort of keep our eyes on how the international talent are doing over in Europe and how they equate to the U.S. team, getting their stuff ready for Qatar later on this year. I hope you're as excited as I am about it.
Did the Bengals win the cup?
The Bengals.
It's a cup, right?
They have to win a playoff game first.
Super Bowl trophy's a cup. See where I go with that?
Okay, Lobster Boy.
Nate Gilman.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a ton. I'm excited to see what happens tomorrow, or what has already happened. If you're listening to this after 3 p.m. tomorrow or 3 p.m. on Wednesday, Tuesday. I don't even know what day it is.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, it's already been a long week, and it's only Monday. So yeah, and then just excited to get back in the saddle as more player signings come in. Hopefully, we have a fun new designated player to talk about in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have everything on the site and moving forward on the show.
Bryan Weigel, let the world know what you're thinking.
Oh, I'm gonna always make fun of you for how you pronounce players' names, and I'm gonna butcher one massively right here. Shout out to Dariel Tercios. I'm probably butchering that. I apologize. But he's an Academy U19 now for FC Cincinnati, who was just called up to the El Salvadorian national team for a training camp this January. Apparently, there's been a big recruiting battle for this kid between El Salvador and Honduras. And it looks like he's trying some time with El Salvador. He's still eligible for the U.S. setup. He did go to a youth national team ID camp this past summer, but I'm glad we have him, and glad that this academy has, maybe not necessarily developed him originally, but as at least putting him into position to succeed in an international level, and hope the best for this kid, and hopefully he can turn that into some time with FC Cincinnati, and whether it's the 2 team this year or with the big guys. So excited to see what he's going to do. Larry Sunderland seems to be pushing a lot of the buttons correctly with that group, and just want to see more of them. So congrats to him, and his star looks to be pretty bright.
I can't wait till we can watch academy games. There was this big plan FC Cincinnati had before COVID that fans could literally go out and watch the academy and get hyped about the next generation. I was pumped. I was all about it. You know, I live really close to the Mercy Health training facility, so just to run down the road after work, watch FCC Academy, play some games, awesome. Hopefully that still comes to fruition once we get out of this nightmare, but that was the plan. Hopefully that still is the plan, and we'll be able to watch some FCC2, FCC Academy games soon, because they're not bad. They won some nice games. FCC 1, not so much. FCC Academy did well last year, so good to see them take off. That was a good shout out, Bryan. I don't think I would have thought of that. My final thoughts. I am loving this like ridiculous merch that we're getting. You guys see this?
It's ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. These hoodies and things are getting loud and bold. And that's kind of what I want. When I want to wear FC Cincinnati, I want to wear FC. I want everybody in Cincinnati to know I'm wearing FC Cincinnati.
Just stand next to Jeff Tebbets.
That's right. Without putting a suit on, that's too hot.
Then let's get the orange jerseys in. Come on.
He is guys. Too hot, and that's why he's getting married.
That's true. That's true. I don't think I'd be able to pick up a wife nowadays.
Can we paint that rhino orange? I think that needs to be the next merch.
No,
Nate,
it's already painted.
Well, what if you lose a future bet on this show?
Oh man, I can't even imagine what kind of odds I would need to get to even put that as a possibility.
Bryan had to paint his body once. His body. I have pictures.
Nobody wants to see that. Actually, apparently people did.
Yeah, people did. People really wanted to see it, and then they didn't. But they didn't. They did before they did. Does that make sense? All right. Well, before we lose the show,
Jack Stern, baby, love you, miss you. Good luck.
Yep. See you, Jack Stern. See you off season as we move into this preseason, which of course will probably be behind closed doors, and you'll be listening to this show. So.
Yeah, super fired up to watch somebody streaming the game on Twitter and to come to sweeping conclusions in February. Can't wait.
Good old MLS preseason where every game's a mystery. You don't want your opponent to know what they're doing, so you don't advertise anything at all. What if they all just put all their games out there? Then wouldn't the playing field be equal? How about that? I'd shockingly giving MLS good ideas. That's it for this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. The train is off the rails as usual at the end of the show. So we want to thank you for listening. We hope you guys got some educational bits about some of those players there and the draft that is tomorrow. Let us know who sold their player the best. Who was Boston's prediction right about the draft tomorrow? This is all things that matter somewhere in some parallel universe. So thanks for listening. Have a good one.